Welcome to the Month End, a CPG community chat. The Month End will provide emerging CPG brands real-life knowledge into the accounting, finance, and operational worlds. Our guests will be key stakeholders from those same brands as well as other key contributors to the industry, all of which have vast experiences and insights that will be shared with the audience. Welcome to episode 21 of the Month End. Today's guest is Jeremy Cohen from the Yes Bar. What's up, Jeremy?
Hey, what's up, Brad?
Hey, Jeremy's the co-founder and partner in the Yes Bar. Why don't you give us a little background on the Yes Bar, what you guys are, what you sell, where you are, and then we can kind of get into your background and everything. Jeremy, I'm really excited to have you on the chat today.
Yeah, we're really excited to join you as well. And so the Yes Bar started out of love in Abigail's kitchen. A lot of these food stories are personal, and her children struggled with food allergies and sensitivities, and they were like bringing coolers of like cooked lentils and, quinoa to the birthday party. And the kids were on this really restrictive diet. And it was really tough. Kids want to eat birthday cake with their friends. They want that experience. And so she, in this kind of moment of challenge, went into her cupboard and pulled out all the good things she could think of: macadamia nuts, almonds, organic maple syrup, coconut butter, tahini, pumpkin seeds. And she basically created this treat for her kids in a moment of like turning a negative into a positive and giving them something that they could enjoy, feel like they weren't super restricted on their diet. And that's where the Yes Bar comes from. That's the name, like saying yes. And it's kind of an affirmation. It's kind of finding that moment of positivity. And that's the genesis, is that recipe too, right? Like we use 4 different kinds of nuts: almonds, macadamia nuts, cashews, pecans. We just added a new nut, walnut, that we're doing on a new flavor. So we stay away from grains. There's no dairy, there's no soy. And we try to kind of have like a low glycemic, clean, it's like anti-inflammatory approach with our bars. But at the end of the day, like we're really about taste and ingredients. And I think it's something where people have always said it's a little crazy to make a bar the way that we do, especially in a set as crowded as bars are. We've got all these premium ingredients, and a lot of people thought we were nuts to make this bar. And we just really believe that this is a special product and that people really deserve, something that's really special that comes from this place, and that we've worked super, super hard over the last number of years just trying to make this and grow it and, get it to as many people as possible.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, with I have children. We go to birthday parties and cupcakes. Yeah. It's tough keeping them healthy. So anything that can keep kids, healthy and feeling good as well as having a good taste is good. People said you're nuts. You said people said you're nuts. So that's what literally and figuratively nuts you guys are.
I think it's true. Yeah, like we're nuts, and it matters. It's like it's who we are, and I think like look, you got to be a little nuts to start a food company, and you have to have a real passion and desire to be of service and try to take care of people, whatever that vision is. And that's informed us since the moment that Abigail like made this in her kitchen, and continues to inform us. Like we absolutely stay committed to like making sure we're not compromising on ingredients, which obviously over the last few years especially, it gets more and more challenging to continue to provide that level of ingredient. But we keep doing it. Like we think that that's who we are and what people deserve, and it's what sets us apart.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to getting more details. So
yeah,
a couple of things. So as we start, like, you have 3 partners, right? You, Abigail, and Brennan. So can you kind of help us understand like what you do, like how you guys segmented your duties between kind of 3, co-founders and partners? Because a lot of times brands don't have 3 people that are in the core operations as you guys have been or are.
In the beginning, Abigail was really involved. She basically had this vision, and she knew that like as a mom, it was really hard for her to kind of take this to that next stage and try to bring this product to people. That's where Brennan and I came in, and we had a background in, food and distribution, and Brennan in private equity as well. So we sort of said, okay, like we think that this is something to believe in, and we threw all of ourselves into it she was very involved in that beginning of like setting us up to kind of take control and work together. I would say now she's definitely more, she's still involved. She's the kind of the creative heart of the company. She still helps us like reach out to folks, and was really instrumental as we worked through this like packaging redesign. She's one of those people who's like a serial entrepreneur, so like her creative juices are always flowing, and it's good to have that input and balance. Like that's where the bar kind of came from. It did come from there. And Brennan and I are running more of the day-to-day stuff, and I would say I'm more on like the operations side, just working with our co-packer, our warehouse, shipping and fulfillment, logistics. I also kind of have always taken the Amazon program on and kind of built that up, as we've been focused on that since kind of around 2016, 2017 when we started working with them. And then Brennan is just like he's the CEO, but he's our leader, like just a sales ninja and business development. And he's someone who is just helping us always just open up these partnerships. And also, I mean, look, we wear a lot of hats. Both of us do all those things too. So I think those are the strengths of the team. And I think like, having listened to your other podcasts, like it's important that you have, if there's partners and people, like a good balance of, talents and ability to work together. And I think with us three, we just like, if you could make a complete person out of the three of us, we would be like great. And so it works really well as we're building the company.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are very complimentary. There's a lot of small brands, I guess, where you guys decided to kind of grow your business, I think more organically, I would say, in regards to not taking a ton of money, hiring 10 people, growing sales teams. So kind of walk us through the approach that you guys have done, especially the last kind of 2-3 years, right? And kind of your growth plan, plus kind of, you guys do wear a lot of hats, and how do you kind of manage that from a pure time capacity standpoint, right? And when is the next time to hire or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like listening to other brands, there are people that are incredibly dialed in on brand vision, that raise money, that built these teams. And, we've really kind of done things in a completely different way. I think for us, like our motto has always been, when other people zig, we try to zag. And that also comes from the fact that Brennan and I met working at like a kind of a boutique early stage food distributor. So we were taking brands that were like Abigail's, and that's actually how we met her. These really passionate early stage food companies. At the time, this was like about 10 years ago now, that you incubated in Whole Foods. Like that was the way that food brands launch. You'd make a regional introduction and you'd go from there. And we had a front row seat to sort of the challenges of like UNFI and KPIs and like these bigger, the cost of doing business with these retailers and distributors. And so when we took over, we've always had a bootstrapped approach, and we basically did direct wholesale across the country. We worked with like Earth Bar, Equinox, yoga studios. We tried to go direct. We worked with like we went to Netflix headquarters and office and food service, and we tried to kind of cut out the middleman, because our product was the focus. It was all about like product quality, and we still haven't raised any money. So for us, like, 6-7 years into this, we've done things a lot differently. And there are moments where I think like it would be nice to have a little bit more support. And we're trying to kind of build that out and bring in those layers. But it's also allowed us, as we built this different model, it's like a hybrid distribution model where we go direct, we kind of control the distribution. Before COVID, we were in about 2,000 to 3,000 little accounts across the country as far as doors went. Our business shifted. We had to kind of become more of a direct to consumer company to kind of weather that storm. But it's certainly like, it's definitely like to not be in a grocery store or a major grocery chain, and to have kind of the revenue that we have and the traction, it's really not something that's conventional. It's not something you see.
No, it definitely, from our kind of vast other clients in the CPG world, like, we typically don't see this. So it's interesting seeing them, and it comes to fruition of just like, the different situations or models or growth, plans that people have. Any one of them can work as long as they're applied properly. So then, so from an aspect of kind of, I guess, looking from a sales channel standpoint,
Yeah.
so kind of assessing that. So, the sales channels that you guys were in or what you're in now, and kind of, from my understanding, there's a lot, there, clearly there's a ton of reselling sites and things like that. Like, what have you found? What works? What do you like? What do you see coming, down the pipe, or, where Yes Bar will be continued consistently?
Yeah, I mean, for us, like that was our early stage model. That was how we kind of scrappily built the company. And when COVID hit, obviously everyone left offices and no one was in yoga studios, and people, that whole model shifted. And we were very lucky for years. We'd been in touch with, well, we built our Amazon business, which is its own sort of focus of ours. Like that's our D2C channel that we excel in. And then we were very lucky to build some partnerships with, the incredible people at like Imperfect Foods, Thrive Market. We work with Misfits Markets, another great partner of ours. They're incredible. Like these great grocery direct programs. We started with Good Eggs a long time ago. They believed in us, before anybody did, when we were a small local brand. And we found like kind of reaching consumers on the digital grocery shelf for us, it allowed us to stand out a little bit more. At our core, like we're a sales and product company. Like that's what we focus on. Like all of our focus is on making the best product and trying to sell that product. And I think a lot of companies have that same calculus, but we don't, we didn't do a lot of marketing, and we didn't want to go into a wall of bars, right? Like we knew that the barriers to entry into those traditional channels, with a product like ours, with the ingredient costs, we were going to be retailing at such a high price point, and we would not have any sort of ACV. Like our velocity would have just been, we could have done, some pipeline fills and gone into those stores, but it would have sat there. And so, for us, building that sales velocity, opening up the right partnerships, like going digital, going direct, it helped us establish our brand in a way that allowed us to also be focused on like a high cost of goods, ingredient and product profile. Like it kind of helped us scale in a way that allowed us to like not have to raise money and not have to be as capital intensive, because we were sort of going direct to the people.
Yeah, love it, love it. So then, how do you handle your kind of reporting from a sales channel standpoint? What KPIs, financials,
Yeah.
metrics do you look at within Amazon and some of your bigger sales channels and platforms?
I know, like, I'm talking about how we're different. I'm gonna sound like a financial dinosaur here, but like we're big, we're big believers in EBITDA, which I think is a funny thing to say, right? Like,
It's hilarious.
I think people 20, 30 years ago, when they were writing in paper spreadsheets, would have cared about EBITDA. And now, now it's like, it's growth or it's doors or whatever it is. And, we believe in profit. Like for us, we're trying to build in a profitable way. We've been very fortunate to have an advisor come on board, Michael Namey, who's the former CEO of Tate's Cookies, and that's how they built their business. They never raised money. Now they own their manufacturing, co-packing, which I think is a different kind of calculation. But we come from that school of thought of like, okay, can we grow profitably? Can we reinvest in our brand? Can we understand, really understand our COGS, our profit margins in these channels, and say, okay, like where can we get to in a good EBITDA number? And can we keep kind of building on that in a sustainable way? It's not glamorous, and it definitely takes more time to do things that way, but we're a big believer in that.
It's fantastic for the listeners. EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So you can always reach out to Jeremy and he'll give you more thesis on that. Anyways, no, I think that's fantastic. I think the last handful of years, just in terms of how media and the markets portray not just in CPG, but like tech stocks and growth and valuations and raising money. It's like, does anybody ever talk about profits? They never talk about profits.
No.
It's bizarre. So
Yeah.
I do feel like at some point it's going to swing back to that of just people like, all right, maybe let's just build a sustainable business where we just don't need to reinvest, or get money into the business every 12 months or 18 months to keep it growing. So kudos to you guys. As an accountant, I love hearing that. And I definitely can see that you guys are kind of, that goal of yours is actually, coming to fruition. So good work on all that. So, Moving on to kind of like now that we're moving profits, let's move to kind of cash flow, operational supply chain. So
Yeah.
number one, supply chain clearly has changed dramatically the last couple of years with COVID. So give an update on your supply chain, some challenges, kind of, shortages on just supplies, kind of, how things have changed the last couple of years with COVID and kind of what's going on the last, economically the last 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, like I don't think these storm clouds are going to clear. We keep sort of looking over the horizon, and I think when it was early in COVID, we were like, "Hey, let's just get through the next quarter or 6 months." And I think what it demands of entrepreneurs and business owners is that you're going to have to kind of have an assumption, not an assumption, but an understanding that this is kind of the new normal, and that it seems to me that there's kind of like rolling challenges with supply chain. At the beginning of COVID, there was a lot of like, port congestion and things and availability with that stuff. Like at one point, we had to air freight our chocolate in because it would have sat on like a container at a port for 2 months. So this price of our chocolate spiked 30%, overnight on one of our core ingredients, and then it moved to like trucking issues, and now there's diesel fuel issues, and there's now getting the ingredients. It's a fuel cost, and the fuel inputs are really challenging. I think the consumer is starting to soften a little bit, and which is also its own set of challenges. And then I'm looking forward, and I'm seeing like if fertilizer input costs are where they're at, coming up on this next round of like growth in the agricultural sector, I think we're going to see another bump kind of near the second half of this year based on like those input costs. And so it's just been like kind of one thing after the other. For us, we're very lucky that we have a really good relationship with our co-packer. We've been able to grow and scale with them during this time, which certainly helps a lot. If you can grow those volumes, that helps kind of blunt the like rising costs. And we've been working on contract pricing on ingredients that we can identify, that it makes sense to kind of have a contract and pull from and pull to our co-packer. I think it's a combination of all those things. I think you got to stay on your toes. I don't see it calming down anytime soon. And I'm hopeful that like we can continue to grow and offer, our margins are starting to get more challenging right now. But we're probably one of the only brands that hasn't raised prices yet during COVID. I mean, we could, and I'm trying to hold it off for as long as it's humanly possible. I want to try to continue to grow and see if that's the ability that we have as a company to continue to deliver that value. But yeah, it's growth, it's planning, and hopefully you can just own that relationship with your co-packer.
Yeah, the Copacker relationship is so key, especially during these times. How in relation to your co-packer years ago when you created relationships, like you guys have the yes bar, right? So you have only a specific set of ingredients, high quality. You have that kind of minimum quality and requirement. Like, how did you go about identifying that co-ban? Have you had any issues with that? What would you recommend to somebody? Because clearly, like a lot of people are gluten-free these days, but when you add on 6 different things like you guys, it's even more, right?
Yeah. We had some relationships going back with our co-manufacturer. Originally, when Abigail started the company, the owners of our current co-manufacturer were doing it in another small facility. And she knew them, and we knew them going into that relationship. We've only worked with a few co-packers in our 7 years, and we've been with our current co-packer for the last 4. We started with them in 2018. It was, tremendously difficult for us to scale and like try to figure out how to manufacture our bars with them. They were a really good partner helping us learn and grow. Like in the beginning for us, it was really like, how do we continue to grow those yields and continue to scale that product up? There was times where like we had to go through different machines, different processes. There was a point where like our machines would break down early in production. And so we would fly down once a month and we would spend 22 hours in the kitchen. So we would do a double shift with each manufacturing shift that came in. And we would be there. And by the end of it, we'd have to hand scoop our bars and put them in a former and press them. And like, it's just a wild sort of situation. Like you really have to be kind of have that determination as I know that not everyone's going to have that nightmare scenario, but what I'm saying is like, we had to work through a lot of that stuff, and we wouldn't take no for an answer. And then eventually we found the right machinery that allowed us to sort of grow those yields a lot, like really jump up on the production scale of things. And that's, I'm glad we got through that. I would never want to go back to that point. So I think it's can you find someone who's going to be a partner for you? It's not always just about price, and sometimes it's not even just about the supply chain. It's about like, can you get into that production environment? It's always going to be challenging. Like that's probably the worst case scenario that you're going to get. But every time I go into a co-manufacturing facility, I kind of have like a PTSD kick in. I'm kind of like, everything that can go wrong in that environment's going to go wrong. You got to be able to manage it. You have to be able to kind of keep pushing through. And that's like, we learned the hard way, but it would help to have a good partner that like helped us through that process for sure.
Yeah, definitely need to be engaged in that process.
Yeah.
That's just hilarious, envisioning 22-hour days around here.
Yeah.
But anyways, related to inventory, right? So inventory is basically cash, right? It's a cash outlet. So then, and managing the time you have inventory at hand at your end before you sell it, minimizes the cash kind of cycle there. So how do you manage cash in relation to inventory buying and planning, and what's that process look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be super candid. Like our inventory purchasing, basically, we have to put down a deposit for 50% of the production about 6 weeks before the production run. So we're basically securing, in a sense, like we're paying up front. So we have upfront cash that's going out in addition to, the production stuff that's happening with the co-packer. On one hand, it helps to take that sort of sourcing off. There was a point in time where I was, managing our supply chain and, making phone calls to nut suppliers and trying to do all that. So that's great. But it definitely, like, our cash conversion cycle starts 6 weeks before we run the bars. And then, there could be probably another 45 days. I got to take a look at the reports, like what that's coming down to. That cash can sit there, in the business for a long period of time. For us, like, there was really nothing that we could do given that system. We just had to keep selling and managing it to the best of our ability. And we just tried to take all the data we had from a sales perspective and tailor our POs the right way. And then, in the beginning, since we didn't raise money, we were trying to figure out how to get working capital to handle those timelines. And those timelines haven't changed. Like that sort of same scenario that's holding true now, to where we're depositing in that time frame. And so like we're having to plan in a way that, absorbs that basically.
Yeah. You definitely have to be involved day to day, week over week, especially in a world you didn't raise a ton of money. So it's week over week changes, dramatically. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So when you're looking at like, let's say monthly financials come over to you, like what is the top two things you look at on the financials?
I mean, again, like I'm trying to look at that profit number and trying to drill down as to what's driving that. And I think what your team has done incredibly well for us. What I didn't understand, I thought our books, we had invested a lot of time to try to get our books to a better place before we came to you guys. And I realized that there was a lot more that we could be doing once we started onboarding with you. And now that we're at the point that we are, and I think specifically like class and trade, like when you're looking at, because we have kind of unique classes of trade. Like we do direct wholesale, we have D2C, we have Amazon, which is really tough when it comes to sort of the billing structure that occurs there. And so it's not like we have like one big distributor that's taking all of this, that it's a lot easier to understand that class top to bottom. Your teams come in and helped us like kind of look at the different pillars of the business and say, okay, like where the cogs are at, what's happening in each of those classes of business. And how can we maybe do we shift some resources to one or the other, or are margins looking more challenged with Amazon or with wholesale? Those are the things that I'm looking at every month now, when that comes through. And, your team's been great to try to help us understand where those numbers are coming from?
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Number one. Number two is, yeah, I think the key is especially how a lot of those sites and just how they deposit money, net of fee, plus the timing of it. So a lot of times the key of really understanding the numbers, it comes down to basically matching the expenses and grossing up sales and everything in that specific month or time frame, which a lot of it's hard to do if you don't have kind of the experience plus just the time to do it. So you can see that net amount raising every month, deposit every 2 weeks from Amazon. But until you really back it on your advertising fees, your fulfillment fees, your discounts, and all the stuff, you don't see kind of the true, contribution margin, operating profit margin percentage that matters, right? So you can see the top line growing, but it comes differently. So
you put it way better than I did, Brad.
There we go. That's what I do. Company like you guys that are focused on, profits, you have to kind of deep dive into individual classes and even customers to understand what's going on in there. So
Absolutely.
Love it. I was trying to trick you to see if you were going to be like, well, look at top line revenue. And I was like, I thought
I'm old school. I could come by the office and fit in with your crew,
Well, Accountfully's growing, so you can come. Anyways,
that'd be great.
Good stuff. And then from clearly profits of a sales channel, but also like, how do you look at you guys, you're talking about like you're a product and sale company. So like from the sales side, like how do you guys look at not just profits of that kind of sales channel or site, but like, customer acquisition costs, lifetime value, like how do you guys analyze that or look at that, especially as you're kind of very conscious of your margins at each sales channel?
Yeah, and I think when I say D2C, our business is mainly in the Amazon channel. From what I've seen, those costs are really prohibitive with where those revenue streams are for our business, like in D2C on our website, and especially with where you're looking at, with the iOS updates and how things have changed now, those costs to acquire customers are much higher, and they're much higher on Amazon too. We have a fairly conservative Amazon strategy when it comes to advertising. For us, I think we're trying to really understand the nuts and bolts of cost and profit of those channels. We're not doing a ton of advertising. When we're setting margin for a business or a channel, we're trying, it's kind of a gut decision, but we're also really looking at those numbers and saying, the channel pricing and where's that retail going to land? And we're hopeful that those people are going to be engaged enough to buy. And that's why those platforms thrive. We do a lot of marketing support in certain platforms. Those are people where we're reaching them and we know, okay, if you're doing whatever the X number of dollars for a program that month is, it's hard to get that data on a customer basis, but we do see when you back it out and we see a month over month, we can really see the effect those dollars have. We don't get as granular with Facebook digital marketing. We don't, that's just not our model. We try to stay a little bit more conservative with our marketing, and we try to support our partners. For some of our partners, like Imperfect Foods, we try to give them a better price. They're not doing as much marketing on their platform. So we're saying, okay, can we work with you so that the retail for the customer is in a good spot? Which I think is another thing. I know, again, I'm going to sound sort of old school in the way that people think about companies and all of these metrics, but it's you can spend money doing those things. For us, we want to get people a product at a good price. We want people to be able to buy that product, enjoy it, not feel like it's something that's out of their reach. And so we've stayed a little more lean on those inputs in order to kind of reach the market at a better price point.
Very cool. Very cool. Unit economics kind of looked at it a little bit differently there.
Yeah.
People to enjoy the product and want to come back because they're not just stressed out about the cost of it all. So, clearly the way the environment is today, cost is very sensitive, or people are very sensitive to cost. So while we're wrapping this up, I got, our typical kind of 2 ending questions, which we'll get into, and then we can discuss kind of, what you guys have on the horizon going up front. Yeah. So as we get into this, give the listeners one industry do.
One industry do. I think it's super important as an entrepreneur and an owner of a company to try to do every process that you are going to hire for or invest in, try to do that on your own for a little bit. I mean, we maybe have done that to our detriment for too long in some cases, but I also think it's really valuable. Like I've done, I've managed 3PLs. I've tried, dipped my toes in Amazon advertising. I've done, I've been in the co-manufacturing kitchen. If you can own those pieces of the business, even in the beginning, when you're like really lean and you're trying to learn and grow, you're going to be able to identify, I think, people that you can either hire or bring in to help in a much better way. You're going to understand those processes better. Knowing that like we've been involved in almost every aspect of our business. I know I'm not an expert at any one of those things, but I also feel much more well equipped to look at those pieces of the business and bring someone in and know, okay, like this is the strategy, and I've been in that position and I've done some of that stuff. So, try to learn and try to do as much as you can, especially in the beginning. You have an opportunity to do that before you can bring in more resources.
Yeah, I echo that. It's much easier to write the job responsibility lists when you've done it or had a little bit of process. So definitely agree on that one. All right, what is it? One industry don't.
We as you've heard, like we've been unconventional when it comes to our growth, and so it was hard for us to get capital, right? Like banks wouldn't lend to us; we were too small. And we tried to find kind of alternative sources of financing. And we have worked with an amazing team over at Circle Up doing some stuff on the credit financing side. They were the first people to do it for us, but we also made some mistakes working with factoring companies, which I want to like caution people. They're good companies. They're good people out there. If it works for you, great. But that fee structure, that 2% or 3%, when you amortize it as an APR over an entire year, it's 24%, it's 28%. We needed capital at certain points when we didn't have a choice, but I would just caution folks to be mindful when it comes to like the inventory financing and the factoring and that sort of stuff, because it can get to be expensive.
Yeah. The key, the number looks small, but once you times that to get it to a 12-month period, you're like, wait, what?
It's crazy.
Pretty pricey. Well, awesome. This was great, Jeremy. Like, I really appreciate your time. I really insight in kind of the non-traditional way of looking at a business, which is super cool. What is new for the Yes Bar? What's on the horizon? New brands, what do you got going, or new products? What do you got going on?
Yeah, so this last year we're on JetBlue Airlines in the snack box. So you can find us on JetBlue, dark chocolate chip bars. We're super excited about that partnership. We are sending in our first orders to REI this week. We're launching nationally with REI. And then the big thing is we are finishing new branding and packaging. So this is the new look of our bars. If you compare it to, I brought the old bar too. So you can kind of see it's a very cleaned up look. We've got 2 exciting new flavors coming: peanut butter dark chocolate with sea salt and apple cinnamon crisp, which is my personal favorite. We do it with a golden raisin and a dried apple. It tastes like apple pie. We're super excited about these new products. We've got a new website coming as well with all of this. So we're just hoping to keep getting people really good food and kind of staying product focused, trying to get people the best possible snack that they can have as a bar.
Awesome. And what's your where can people go find it and buy it?
Yeah, I mean, we're available. We have some great bulk deals on our website for people to order into your home. If you're working from home, home is a hub. We also have Amazon is a great option for us, and you can find us kind of out in the world a little bit still. It's hard to find us, but always feel free to reach out to us. We can tell you if there's something near you as far as a retailer, and when we'll always go above and beyond for you.
And that's yesbar.com.
Yesbar.com. That's right.
Pretty easy to remember.
There it is.
Well, awesome, Jeremy. Again, this was great. I think the listeners will get some good information and some different ways of thinking about kind of running a CPG brand. So appreciate you. Kudos and best wishes to Yes Bar in 2022 and moving forward.
We really appreciate you guys. Such a great partner. I should have also said, big piece of advice: work with Accountfully. We could have done that 3 or 4 years ago.
Well, really appreciate that, Jeremy, and I'm glad you see the value on our end. But
for sure.
All right, that's episode
Thanks, Brad.
with Jeremy. Take it easy, Jeremy.
All right, bye-bye.